Welcome to the Scent of Beauty. My name is Susan, and this video is titled Friction, Responsibility / Accountability. We're going to examine how these two words were defined, and based on our understanding, hence comprehension of these words, we're going to take a look at what have we learned. We're going to take a look at some correlation in regards to these two words. And it's an individual question. Did it foster a sense of well-being, or are we experiencing some friction in regards to misunderstanding these words or misinterpretation of these words? I want to take a look at children's formative years. In our formative years, we learned that responsibility and accountability was associated with being good little boys and girls. What they don't do, what he or she doesn't do, in order to be labeled good boy or good little girl. One of the message is that good little boys and girls, they don't cause, quote, trouble. They are taught to be good for, and you can insert a name in that space if you'd like. The idea is others are dependent on you to be on or at your best behavior. The child is dependent upon being a stress reliever for a caregiver. Children by nature aim to please. After they have followed the steps to becoming good, usually gleefully, the child will ask for a reassurance. Am I a good boy and girl? And based on following the criteria, the caregiver will say, yes, you are. They develop what I call an impressionist view. The picture which become their impression of life and their responsibility in order to fit in. Their sense, their idea, the perception, estimation, their concept is based on what they learned about responsibility / accountability. We don't verbalize it, just like a child doesn't as they grow, but and that's as an individual speaking, have become subjected and definable for and by those that surrounds, I'll say for those around me, around that child, regardless of the age. The message that this individual learn is that the world, the external world, is a happier place. At least the people are, when I act in a responsible manner and become accountable to them, to their, at least to their needs and requirements. I really want to say their needs and wants. Have you ever listened when a child gets an A on a report card? The child's name is called and said, you have made mommy or daddy whoever the caretaker is, so happy. I, in quotation, am proud of you, quotation. The message, when I'm responsible at school, it's in correlation with giving happiness to the adult. Accountability, you. Accountable to whom? You made me proud. Was that meant to foster our responsibility and accountability for our own well-being, or was it fostered not to create friction between ourselves and the external stimuli that is taking care of us? Did that child stir up the positive reinforcement from a parent? That's the stimulation that I'm talking about, tapping into an emotion so that the child could feel validation as a reward. What would happen if all the reward was left to the person who was responsible and accountable for the final result? What about when the child does well in school and there is a response? Wow, you've got a great grade. It shows the effort that you have placed within yourself. You must be so proud of yourself. Wow, doing your homework and listening to the teacher, you showed so much accountability to your own being. What about that? Fostering a complete sense of well-being. All the accolades belong to you. What occurs unconsciously is that in our being, when we start to get our validation from external sources, I'm not talking, encouragement is a whole different subject, because I know, there is encouragement which is not in association with anything to do with another being, including caregivers. So we look for the reflection of ourselves in our teachers, the coaches, in our friends, siblings, let's just say our social network. And it inadvertently hindered the gift of gaining and being accountable to ourselves. When we develop subjectively, it only naturally turns into becoming, or at least thinking objectively. Everything we do is in relation to something, someone outside of ourselves. We were born innately with responsible traits to ourselves, solely to ourselves. A newborn baby, as soon as that baby is hungry, he or she will cry. They don't know about caregivers' needs and wants. They just know, I'm hungry. I'm wet. So they get fussy until they're changed. They move around because they're uncomfortable until they find the comfort that they are comfortable with. Then they go to sleep, they rest. Even if they're not sleeping, they calm down. Our mechanism is accountable to us. and solely to us until we were introduced to another way of being. Hence, we develop friction, a concept of responsibility and accountability, one that has nothing to do with who we are. And the reason why there is friction is because there's two systems now that are in operation, and we're having these conflicts. Then to throw a monkey wrench in that dynamics, there is a third system. Adolescents, young adults, we are told you need to take more responsibility for yourself. But how, when we were never accountable to ourselves? So we are given a quick overview in how to become independent, responsible, and accountable to ourselves at this stage of development, the adolescent stage of development. And the friction is the conundrum that we find ourselves in. That is one of the reasons why the natural flow or progression into the mature self is so difficult and painful at times, because at the juncture of trying to cram these lessons into the dynamics that we have learned, the habits that we have formed to please others in order to find reassurance, these adolescents are in a state of confusion. Young adults, and I dare to even say adults on a whole. Many of us didn't learn accountability to self. We became masters of altruism. First dibs go to everyone. Everything that we do that is pleasing, others can take the credit. And we realize that there is a lack of self-accountability and responsibility at various times in our lives when we can identify a reflection of ourselves because we have learned only altruism and what that looks like, or how we learn to interpret what love or interaction and exchanges look like. I should say how it's played out. Altruism, the definition is the intentional and voluntary action that is aimed to enhance the welfare of another person in the absence of any quid pro quo, external reward. Altruism is also called for selflessness. And do we dare say today that the less of self is just not acceptable? See, altruistic love is the tenderness and affection which is freely given while expecting nothing in return. We are taught to continually pour out and just give away. I think this is a safe place to define responsibility and accountability as it pertains to this video, because these words are usually used interchangeably, but the main difference is an essential difference, because responsibility and accountability, it can be shared, But being accountable not only means being responsible for something, but it also ultimately being answerable for your actions. So the question is, have I been accountable to myself, and have my action shows this as truth? Or am I experiencing friction? It's an individual question. Welcome to the Scent of Beauty, Part 1.